Welcome to Uncensored Stories. I'm your host, Ryan Dowdy, former director of sales and college athlete turned sales coach. And I have the privilege of interviewing some of the coolest entrepreneurs I have had the opportunity to meet. In this interview series, you are going to hear stories that will give you inspiration, that will give you hope, that will encourage you to continue to moving forward in your entrepreneurial journey. So let's dive in and meet our amazing entrepreneurs. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Uncensored Sales Stories, where I bring you amazing entrepreneurs that I have had the opportunity to meet and connect with so they can share their story with you. And so today we are talking to my friend Naketa, who's going to tell you her entire story. But I always like to let you know how I meet people so we can talk about the power of networking. So Naketa and I are in a group coaching program together. You guys know I talk all the time about Kelly Roach. Naketa is also in the Unstoppable Entrepreneur, and I lead a call inside of that. I'm one of the master coaches. And so Naketa and I just connected, and I connected with her on social media, and her energy is just off the charts amazing. And I was like, we need to be friends. And then I was like, hey, will you come talk to my people? Because I think you're amazing. So Naketa, introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Well, first, let me thank you for bringing me to your stage, because I feel honored and welcome. And we won't tell everyone how it took you like 4 to 6 months to get on my calendar. So we'll talk about that later off site, because she has a very productive schedule, people. In case you were wondering, she really is that chick. Okay. So my name is Naketa R Thigpen. I owned a global personal development company where we work with power couples and married women entrepreneurs, typically because they come exhausted. They are happy in their marriage and they want to be happier. They've been building these wildly successful, fast scaling businesses, and it has left very little room to prioritize the passion in the bedroom so they could be innovative and creative and thrive in the boardroom. So that's typically what I do these days. And I blend all of my great skill sets. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a trauma-informed specialist, a sexologist, a relationship therapist, a coach, and a strategist. So all of that comes together so we can really elevate these families to build stronger legacies that they can really be proud of.
I love that. So what Naketa just said is she's a magician, and
I do have a wand over there.
I love that. I'm not surprised. So I love that. And I want you to share a little bit of kind of your story, because what I learned when I had the opportunity for you and I to chat on your podcast, you had told me that like your business was offline for a very long time. So while you're newer to the online space, you are not newer to business. So will you like really like take us all the way back to like how you became the powerhouse you are today?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this is not a linear story. There's lots of layers that for most of us, right? It always is. I come from the clinical world, from systems, from hospitals, from court systems, from crisis centers. I was not raised by entrepreneurs, side hustlers, street hustlers. Yes, we could talk about that all day, but actual like entrepreneurship with SOPs and systems and teams and collaboration and power partners and all of that, I knew nothing of that world. So when I jumped into this business, my company will be 10 years old in May. So we're almost an adult in entrepreneur terms. Like we're almost an adult. Like when you hit 30 and you're like, yes, I'll be respected. You hit 10 and you're like, yes, people will hear me. So we're about to be an adult in a few months. When we started, my husband and I started this together. We're co-founders. He works on the business, not in the business, as he likes to remind me often. Like I don't work for you. When we started 10 years ago, we started as a staffing agency, and we had a second arm that was professional development. So we've made a lot of pivots. Part of me starting that way is I came with the same aim I have today. I wanted to build stronger families. And I know financial issues is one of the main reasons that families split, divide, and all kinds of chaos ensues. So I was like, well, let me give people their independence. Let me give them skill sets. Let me help them with their soft skills, their leadership, all that stuff. That was not my lane. That was me hiding behind the technical things of skills that I could do, but I wasn't infusing my gift, my know-how, my power of human behavior and relationships, all of that. So I had to go through my own journey, my own self-development and personal development and growth process to really step into who I am. And that first 6 months of figuring out the figure-outables, as Marie Forleo would say, we lost $100,000. All of our savings, bootstrapped entrepreneurs. We did not come from money. We do not have a lot of money. It was all our hard savings. And that damaged my family. My husband was like, so you want to stay in this marriage? Like, what's happening here? So there was a lot of that was happening behind the scenes. My balance, pun intended here, was completely thrown off kilter. And that led me to a space of seeking help. Like I needed to not just be the smartest girl in the room that could write a 68-page business plan and do all the technical things. I needed someone like a Ryan Dowdy in my life who could coach me, guide me, support me, and give me some of their experience in the process as I was coming into myself. So the road was messy. It was not pretty. And it had lots of great opportunities of feel good moments, those hopium moments that we have, like, oh, that was a good conversation. I hope that client becomes a client. No, they didn't. They just girlfriended you and put you in the pocket of like, she's my bestie, but didn't invest in anything. So we went through years of this, making a few thousand, losing a lot, wasting a lot of energy, and really finding our footing and being bold about our own boundaries, quite honestly, and coming to a space where we're like, no, we don't do any of that anymore. We do this other thing, and being okay with the scarcity issues that were brought up because of that.
Yeah, that is wild. So I want to go back to the part where you said we lost $100,000.
Yeah.
But here you are 10 years later. Like, how did you guys get to the point of like, we just lost $100,000 to like, we're going to keep going? Because a lot of people would have just like taken their toys and gone home and being like, I'm gonna go back to the corporate world, go get me a job and pay this off over the next bajillion years. What was that conversation? What went on in your head? And then what was that conversation with your husband that got you guys moving forward?
Yeah, that was tough. So for all the reasons, right? Like my ego was bruised. I'm addicted to stress. Like that's my addiction that I have to like constantly be aware of. I'm the woman who's in a master's program, going for clinicals, breastfeeding one baby, walking a toddler, working 3 jobs, and deciding that I want to do something grandiose while having all these church ministerial commitment duties, right? Like I'm that person that eats that for breakfast and was like, well, wait, what do you mean that I can't do this one job as an entrepreneur? Like, how did that happen? Not understting that entrepreneurship. So we're
like the same person. I've never heard this story, but I'm like, yes. I'm there. All
exactly. Right. Versus, when you're an entrepreneur, that's like 15 jobs. Right. But if you're not raised to know that, if that's not your circle, if those aren't your people, you have no idea. You're looking at it almost through the same eyes that are penalizing you from your family and friends that also may not be entrepreneurs. And they're like, what's wrong with you? Why would you leave that good job? Like, why would you leave your salary, your leadership, your awards that you've gotten from that other part of your life to do something unknown? But you're kind of doing the same thing, thinking, I can crush this. It's one job. This is my full-time focus. Not realizing it's going to bring up all of your imposter syndrome, your confidence issues you didn't even know existed in your realm. If you thought you were that chick before, you're going to find out that you have a lot of growing to really become the person you thought you were and go further. Like all of that stuff was happening for me. So the tenacity in me, the survivor in me, the fighter in me who came from very traumatic household, that part is actually what I pulled on. It was the parts of me that I was ashamed of, that I didn't want other people to see. Deepening into the vulnerability of me really helped to propel me up and have those really uncomfortable conversations with my husband. Like, look, I'll work a pole if I have to, but I'm not putting this entrepreneurial position aside. Like, I really need to figure out how to make this work. And of course, he supports me. He loves me. And we needed our bills paid. His income from his full-time job wasn't enough to pay our bills. He needed me to do my part. Like that was the situation we were in, and no shame for it, right? But I had to figure out, like, girl, you got to pay for this business, whatever goes on in that business, and you have to contribute to this household one way or another. And my goals in life were really to stay off the pole and out of jail. So I've successfully done both of these all of my years. Awesome. But I came close to like, I can make some money. I got curves. Like, wait a minute. I thought about it a few times. Minister and all, like, will people come see a minister swinging? Yeah. So I had to really, right, like being honest, I had to really have these conversations with myself of like, what do I really want? What was my truth? Who did I want to become? And get humble about getting there. A lot of it was deep conversations of, babe, this isn't working. You got to do something. So I did things that many people listening to this podcast right now would do. I took the clients that weren't a good fit. Right. Because I wanted to build a portfolio. I spoke for sandwiches that I can't eat because I'm gluten-free, right? Like that they wanted to pay you an exposure, but there was like, exposure's not paying your PICO bills and your PGW, your gas, electric, all the things. But I did it because one, I had this need to kind of feel busy not productive, right? I wanted to be productive, but the busy was filling a void. I wanted to build a portfolio. I had a lot of justified wants, but no strategy. So that was where the issue was. So for my husband, he was feeling a little bit better. Like, okay, well, she out here, she doing 16-hour days. You know, she's up at 3:15 in the morning. I'm doing 5 a.m. waking breakthroughs, everybody. Like, you know, I'm doing all the things and the money wasn't there, but at least he could see me, because a lot of our partners need to see us doing something versus sitting on the couch with bonbons or something, right? So he knew I was working really hard. He just didn't understand, the same way I didn't understand, that I was missing, you know, a Bobby Fodish, a Ryan Dowdy, a Kelly Roach, you know, that could really give me the strategies that I needed to go forward. It was really tough.
Oh my gosh, I love that. There's so much that like I want to unpack, but like I told you, I like to keep these short. But one of the things I always tell a story, Naketa, about a guy that I met who had opened a brewery, and it took them 3 years. They had to go to 14 different banks. They had to like literally change legislation, like in the little town they wanted to put this brewery in, like change the liquor laws. And I always talk about that in online entrepreneurship. And I think you have grit because it was an online entrepreneurship. But online entrepreneurship, the barrier of entry is so low that we're just like, oh, you know, kind of one foot in, one foot out this. And your reference to work in the poll, which I'm giggling about, but like, to me, that is like the ultimate sacrifice. Like, what are you willing to do to make it work? Right. And I always ask, you know, are you 3 years, 14 banks, you know, arguing in the city council, committed to your business? Because that is why you're still here 10 years later. Like, you told me a whole lot of different things, but it was like, I was willing to do whatever it took, get out of bed at 3:15, make stuff happen, understand that if I had to go get a second job, work in the poll or not, that I was going to do that because this is what I feel meant to do. And I think that is just such an incredible thing. And it's like, it's why you're here. But I just love that we're sharing this with somebody who might be staring, you know, up the hill, in 10 years feels like a lifetime. Like, I think about it, you know, George is 20 months old in 10 years. I'm like, oh my God, probably in 10 years, I might die.
Hyperventilating.
I know, girlfriend's got like red hair and blue eyes, like sassy as her mama, and I'm not going to live for 10 years. But, you know, when I think about that, like, you know, these women standing here looking, and they're like, I can't even imagine what that looks like. But this is what that looks like. It looks like starting and stopping and pivoting. And what you start with isn't what you end with, because you started as a staffing agency and now you work on relationships. And I think that's incredible. So let's spend a little bit of time there, because I think that the work, like, how did we get from staffing agency to licensed clinical social worker to the work that you do now? Because like you said a lot of things about what you do, but like when I look at you online and the persona that you have, I see very much relationship coach, like really focused on intimacy and power in the family. Like, how did we get there?
Yeah, which is hilarious, because I was all those things before we opened the staffing agency. With the alignment, the misalignment was, I didn't believe, the way a lot of people probably look at their own services and products, as a clinician, as a trauma specialist, as a relationship therapist, I didn't believe you could actually make money doing that outside of the system, right? Like working for the hospital, working for the court system, child advocate, directors, you know, the titles inside of an organizational chart. Like, I was like, well, you know, when you're a therapist, someone calls their insurance, the insurance directs them over to, there's no networking. There's no polying, you know, kissing baby, shaking hands. Like, you don't have to do that. You pick up your phone and you say, yes, I can take them. No, I can't. Right. Like, that's as simple as it is. It's also confined to a budget. You know, whatever the insurance capita is, whatever they're going to pay mixed with their copay. So you might get $100 an hour that the insurance company pays you 90 days after you've seen that client. Like, you might get that, right? And all the bureaucracy that you have to go through. That's not the life I wanted. That was very much like my childhood. That was survival. I wanted to thrive. I wanted for me the same thing that I wanted for the people that I was doing all this tenacious work for. And I didn't want to do it in the bubble and confine of a system that would force me to pick a diagnosis so I could get paid. Right. When with all the layers, like, that's a whole nother story, right? But like all the layers in that. So I had ethical issues, integrity issues. I had all that. The rebellious girl, Philly girl in me was kicking up, like, listen, you know, you got to make some decisions about your non-negotiables. You said no pole, no gel. You also have to look at what you're not going to do for your money in the legal side of things either. So I felt kind of trapped in that, but I was also scared. I didn't believe that you could be a billionaire doing doing it this way. So we did the research. I'm a nerd. My addiction was stress, right? So I'm like, well, how can I help people with their number one issue to keep the family together, which is money, get them skills. I did all the research. I went to Wharton Consultants. I did all the things you're supposed to do. The 68-page business plan is real. Certified stamp. This is amazing. They didn't tell me about the all boys club and staffing. They didn't tell me that Black girls weren't allowed. They didn't, they didn't tell me about any of that stuff that I fell into really hard, which was part of why we lost the money so fast. And the fact that we couldn't get a loan with a 750 plus credit score, both of us with great, good credit and great savings and all that. They were like, yeah, no, there's a hole in your application. We can't figure it out. And the reality is we were being discriminated against because of who we were, a young Black couple. So there was like all these battles that I wasn't prepared for. And that was also one of the reasons that I felt like I had to hide behind something that people would respect. Right. They'll respect staffing. They'll respect professional development and growth, right? Like I even made my husband president when we started, and it was my vision. I was like, no, even if you're not there all day, I'll be the face, I'll do the paperwork, but you be president because they'll respect a man. Mm-hmm. I had to do my own self-work and be like, girl, you've been a clinician for over 20 years. You've been building families and helping people this way all this time. You just weren't doing it at the level that you want to do it to really create these unlimited possibilities and help people get unbound and release their brilliance into the world. So a lot of the getting there to there was really reminding myself what I already had. So for everyone listening, I would say you already have what you need. You're trying to convince yourself you have to be someone else or show up on Instagram these days. That didn't exist 10 years ago, but you got to show up, in a certain way that you don't have to. And a lot of that was the imposter syndrome of not really believing who you're becoming, but you were believing those scripts that you had inside of you, that you're not lovable, that you're not enough, that you're not worthy, that you can't possibly do this without being more masculine and how you do your cells, all the stuff, right? Like I was, full transparency. I was hiding behind all of that. And I even did it in the branding. Our freaking colors were like silver and blue and like we look like a bank, like we look like a bank. So, which is not what we wanted. And it took me stepping into my purest gift, which is exhortation, which is empowerment. I started speaking to people, and people literally I know one of your questions to a lot of your guests, because I digitally stalk you, is how do you get your first client? Right. My first client came because I was just speaking, telling my story, like the 5-minute version of it. And someone stood up and was like, I need to work with you because you're me. And she was about 20 years my senior. She was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be this person. I have years left. And I was like, well, I'll figure it out. Let's figure out how to work with each other. And we kind of co-created a program together, the baby beta version of what is now the Joy Map method to get there.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I have like all the goosebumps. I think that's so amazing. I think you're amazing. So let's talk about sales. So we've got a couple minutes left, right? You talk about how you got your first client. Obviously, like going into the staffing world, like sales was like dog eat dog in that space. Like what was your relationship with sales, and like how has that evolved into what you're doing now?
My relationship was horrible because I didn't have to do it before, right? Sales was scammy, spammy. It was the person trying to hustle you into a better version of a white t-shirt, right? That was my thought process around it. Doing my own coaching work, being a coachee, being menteed, or being a mentee, however the term would be for that. Once I did that work, I understood that selling was serving. And stepping into the power of who are you not helping by not being bold and respectful about what you can offer and being realistic. Even if if you're not really sure, maybe you don't have licenses and masters and doctorates and all that stuff. Who cares? You have a gift that you can package and put into someone's hand as part of their transformational process to get them from A to B. Right. And I had to walk that process through myself. But part of it was admitting that sales isn't bad. It's not spammy. It's not this yucky thing. No one wants to be sold to, but they do want to be served. So serve them with your gift, and don't worry about trying to convince them. Just show up who you are. And the person seeking the solution will raise their hand and say, I need you in my life.
So true. I love that. And I think, and especially because empowerment is your jam. Like I like to think that selling is empowering somebody else to get the result that you provide, right? Absolutely. To live whatever version of themselves that is, whether you are impacting their relationship, impacting their business, impacting their health, all the different ways. that the people listening to this serve your clients. And so I think that's really exciting. Well, Naketa, I could talk to you all day long and hear your stories, but I told Naketa this. Her shirt actually says selfish, which I love. I love it. I told her I selfishly keep these short because if anything is over like 20 to 30 minutes, I won't listen to it just because of my lifestyle. So I do like to keep this short. Tell everybody where they can stay connected with you, where they can learn more from you and be a part of your world, Naketa.
Absolutely. I would say come on over to the Certified Selfish community on Facebook. That's where we play with our married women entrepreneurs and a few brave men that want to show up there. And if you're hesitant, just email me at asknaketa@ThigPro.com.
Awesome. You guys go be part of that Facebook group. Just follow her. Her message is fun. Like the empowerment that she exudes every day is really, really exciting. So even if it's the imposter syndrome and the fear and the, what the heck am I doing with my life? And everyone's going to think I'm crazy for quitting this cushy job to do this thing. Just the message that she shares is so empowering. So I definitely go be part of her world. Naketa, thank you for pouring into our community. We're grateful to have you here, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thanks again for watching Uncensored Stories, How They Got Started. We would love to stay connected on social media. You can join us in the Ambitious Women Entrepreneurs Mastering Sales Skills community on Facebook. Follow us at Uncensored Sales on Instagram or at Uncensored Sales on TikTok, and we'll see you in the next interview.